Hello and welcome to the Verdict Season in Review. As we wind down the last year in racing, we thought what a perfect time to look back on some of the great highlights that we have seen on the track. And it's been an interesting year as I bring in my co-host Mick Sharkey. What we've decided to do, Sharkey, is break this down into categories. We'll do the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, we'll do the sprinters, we'll do the stayers, and today we're looking at the middle distance category, and there's been a lot to talk about in that area.
Plenty to talk about, Michael, across every demographic through this series. Middle distance horses wasn't without controversy at key times of the season as well. Bit of a changing of the guard year too, I think.
That's right. We farewelled a couple of the superstars who said their goodbyes in this past racing season, and the new kids on the block certainly stood up. But when we talk of the stars, the queen of Australian racing, without doubt, was Via Sistina, and she returned in the Winx. It was a heavy 10. She was the odds-on favourite, and she didn't disappoint.
Lost a length at that point, and Aliana's hugging the rails as they come up to the home turn. Robusto's coming wide. Lindemann right up the inside. Lindemann hard fence, Robusto in the middle of the track. Now Via Sistina's got the big gap, and here she comes. Down the outside is Gringotts, and further back to Arapaho making ground. Via Sistina raced up now, hits the lead. Aliana's racing home well on the inside. Via Sistina in front from Aliana. Via's got a dig. Via and neck in front. Aliana's driving, but Via Sistina goes back-to-back in the Winx Stakes. Won it by a neck to Aliana.
So that was Chris Waller's 9th win in the Winx Stakes, and for Via Sistina, that was her 10th Group 1 victory, Shark. And there was a lot of discussion before that race. How would she handle a heavy track? Chris Waller at one stage was a little bit uneasy about running her, but she is, at that stage, the undisputed king or queen of Australian racing.
Absolutely. It was an ominous return, wasn't it? Because we know Chris Waller likes to build his best horses into their preps towards the grand final. We knew grand final day would be in the Cox Plate, so plenty of water to go under the bridge at that point of the season. Heavy track. The stable seemed to think she wanted to get her toe in. Punters were a little bit unsure. As soon as she burst through and picked those leaders off, there was no doubt who was going to win. Signalled a bit of a changing of the guard too with Aliana back inside, wasn't it? Just poking around there, showing that she'd be right in the thick of things for the better races.
After that win, though, she was almost even money in the Cox Plate. People were saying the Cox Plate was over, that she would come to Melbourne and dominate. Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't that way when she came to Flemington in the Maccabi Diva Stakes. When Mr Brightside, he showed he's still one of the horses to beat, winning his 3rd Maccabi Diva. This was a beautiful ride by Craig Williams, who, in a small field, absolutely dominated from the front, Sharky.
Yeah, hand up on a good horse in front to Craig Williams at your absolute peril, jockeys. And they did it here with Mr Brightside, who was shooting for the 3rd Maccabi Diva Stakes in a row. No mistakes made by horse or jockey here. Best turn of foot in the race. Via Sistina ran well, building through the line. Aliana there as well. And Tino, one of the better runs of his prep.
His 2 lengths in front. It's going to be a famous hat trick. 3 Maccabi Divas for Mr Brightside. 2nd Aliana. 3rd Via Sistina.
He's just a marvel, Mr Brightside. We hope to get him back in the spring and see what he can do once again. But I think there are a lot of questions being asked from Via Sistina after that performance. I know she set out wide, but you'd have to say she was a touch disappointing in that race.
Well, after the Winx Stakes, we just expected her to put up a picket fence, didn't we? And that didn't happen. Unfortunately for Mr Brightside and Connections, that was the high water mark of his season. He had that little fetlock chip at the end of the spring. But, yeah, we want to see him back for this spring, don't we?
Absolutely. In between, we saw another horse stamp its claims for the Cox Plate, Sir Delius. This horse had come out of nowhere, Shark, and the International for Gay and Adrian had shown a glimpse in the winter up in Queensland, but what he was able to do in the Underwood Stakes, first of all, at the start of the Melbourne Spring Carnival, and here in the Turnbull, marked him as the horse to beat and the potentially best horse in Australia.
River, then Sir Delius staying on from Via Sistina, and Tino below the 200. Sir Delius wearing it down. Sir Delius takes the lead from Antino Via Sistina. Sir Delius, take note, the real deal. Sir Delius, 2 lengths Antino.
It was well summed up by Matty Hill, the real deal. There was no questioning Sir Delius was, at that stage, the best horse. He was installed as the Cox Plate favourite, the Melbourne Cup favourite as well, and he beat them hands down. He sat wide and he was the strongest horse in the Turnbull. It looked like he had the rest of the spring at his mercy.
Well, look at hindsight, right? What did he beat? Half Yours comes out and wins the Caulfield Melbourne Cup, and Via Sistina obviously there as well, ends up winning the Cox Plate. Would she have won the Cox Plate, though, if Sir Delius had turned up? Because things went a little bit off script from this point on, Michael.
17th of October was when the racing world was turned upside down. The bombshell that came out that Sir Delius, short price favourite for the Cox Plate, firm favourite for the Melbourne Cup, was ruled out of the rest of the Spring Carnival when it failed its veterinary CT scan. It said, the vets, that it was at a heightened risk of injury. Now, therefore, unable to take his place in the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup. The irony of this was that the scan was done early to get it out of the way. Connections could have waited until after the Cox Plate to have that Melbourne Cup scan, but hindsight was a wonderful thing. That was the biggest controversy of the spring.
And you look at the way he put that field away in the Turnbull, such a defining race, always in the Spring Carnival. It's hard to imagine that there was a heightened risk of anything going wrong with the horse, but that's why we have these scans in place to protect our best horses, and thankfully we've seen him come back and race well.
We will get to see a little bit more of Sir Delius later in the middle distance program. Let's head back up to Sydney now, because the next emerging superstar of the Australian racing landscape had been nicknamed Baby Winks, and that is Autumn Glow, who, first of all, we got to see win a very easy Epsom here. I don't think it's the strongest Epsom we've ever seen, Sharky, but it continued what was building as the legend of our next great horse, because it was 7 wins from 7 and her first Group 1.
Autumn Glow responding to pressure, and the mare hits the lead with Pericles into the clear. Autumn Glow gets a length and a half clear, and Autumn Glow remains unbeaten. She was born a winner. She's the real deal. Autumn Glow goes on to win her 7th...
As I said, I don't think it was the strongest Epsom, but they took luck out of the equation, put her up outside the lead, and at that stage of the season, she was probably the most hyped horse we've
Oh, without a doubt, and for a little while as well. Look, they didn't give it to her on a platter either. She drew wide in that race, had to work across early to get to that forward position. The thing about this horse, though, and also the progeny of the Autumn Sun, which tends to be a bit of a trend, they just travel so well into their races. Then they're asked to quicken, it's there immediately. Turn of foot is just pure with this horse.
She was amazing. We were hoping to see her in a Cox Plate, but the lure of $10 million in the Golden Eagle for the 4-year-olds was too much to ignore. That is where she went next. She continued on her winning run with J-Mac in the saddle and remained undefeated.
11 being roused along, Seapole's pulling out, and Autumn Glow now really being wound up by McDonald, and she's starting to hit the line. It's Perfumist, 300 to go, quickly tackled by Autumn Glow. Seapole's trying to go with her, 2 further back to Evaporate running on. Autumn Glow just in front. Seapole's is trying to make a race of it, but now she opens up the shoulders. Autumn Glow got a length clear. We're looking at greatness. Another chapter in this stunning career. Autumn Glow wins the Golden Eagle.
8 from 8, undefeated. I think that was her best win, Sharky. And Dan O'Sullivan will join us at the end of the program. It'll be interesting to see how those wins rated compared to the likes of Via Sistina and also Sir Delius.
We're talking about her in a middle distance category.
Yep.
As far as this season goes. I wonder, we've seen her out at 2,000, not as dynamic. I wonder if next year we're talking about her in the sprinters category, Michael. Could Everest be on the cards?
Well, you never know, because we will see her when she returns in the Queen Elizabeth. Maybe she wouldn't have been able to win a Cox Plate over 2,000 metres. Who will know? Speaking of the Cox Plate, it was a historic moment. That's what we'll look at next. A farewell to the Valley and Via Sistina doing it again. Welcome back to the Verdict Year in Review. Mick, Sharky and I are looking at the middle distance gallopers, and Sharky, we come to the Cox Plate. A lot of discussion, a lot of drama in the build-up. The final Cox Plate at Moonee Valley. Can Via Sistina go back-to-back? Is she going as well as what she was 12 months ago? We'd lost Sir Delius in the build-up, so it was only a small field for what we normally see in a Cox Plate, and Via Sistina was the one that the punters had picked.
Aliana behind them. Attrition has got back to third last from Buckaroo and Antino. Light Infantry Man, 450 metres to go. Treasure the Moment gets her nose in front though. Nepotism going with her, and Via Sistina on the outside. 350 metres to go. Treasure the Moment kicked. A length Via Sistina, Nepotism. Buckaroo around the outside, then Attrition. Treasure the Moment around the turn. 200 metres to go. A length and a quarter in front. Via Sistina and Buckaroo wearing her down at the 100. Treasure the Moment. Via Sistina and Buckaroo. Via Sistina lifting. The Brownwell belly's rocking. And Via Sistina's done it. Via Sistina. One more left.
I love this place. I'm blessed to ride champion racehorses. Blessed to be a part of a champion stable. And she was trained to the minute. I can't thank the Waller team. Everyone, like, they're just exceptional horse people. They love their horses. Candice lives and breathes this horse. She deserves a lot of the credit, and even though it wasn't 7 lengths, I'm just over the moon. Thank you so much.
It was an incredible moment. It was the right moment for the story. The last Cox Plate, J-Mac wins 4 in a row. Via Sistina goes back-to-back, unless you backed Buckaroo, that is, Sharky. But look, she was a shadow of herself compared to 12 months ago, but her big heart got her over the line.
Yeah, it certainly did. Look, it was a day built around theatre, wasn't it? The last Cox Plate at the Valley, as we've known it for so long. A race that has just given us so many thrills over the years. The roar from the crowd was otherworldly when they hit the line. They were all going to go out on Via Sistina, hoping her across the line, willing her to get there. She hits the line and they go absolutely ballistic. You'd say they tear the joint apart. Well, they did.
Literally. And you were out there front and centre, Sharky. These were some of the great pictures. There's a little ankle tap there that
there was,
gentleman's
wasn't there?
going down. But, I mean, it was scenes that we've never seen before. Literally dismantling the track and taking souvenirs home with them. This is after the last. We won't see anything like that again.
Look at the rail. And there were pot plants and all sorts of things going on.
You woke up with a piece of that rail in your bedroom, didn't you?
No comment. No, I certainly didn't. But I think a few people have some very, very unique mementos from that Cox Plate day. It'll
be remembered as one of the all-time Cox Plates because it was the last Cox Plate at the Valley. I don't know whether it will have rated as one of the great Cox Plates. Dan O'Sullivan can tell us more about that in the next segment. What we did see, though, I think, was Via Sistina go to another level in the Champion Stakes. It was a wet and wild day at Flemington, and she showed her class and her love of wet track conditions.
Next, Tom Kitten. Via Sistina is just starting to get closer with Light Infantry Man. They're not that far off the lead now, about 3 or 4 lengths as they run around the corner. They come to the middle of the course. So it's Alan Kerr from Piers. Zambardo back to the inside. Tom Kitten. Via Sistina getting nice and close for James McDonald now on the outside at the 300 metres. Here comes the star Via Sistina. She lets down from Tom Kitten, Pier and Zambardo. 200 to go. Via Sistina. 2 legs, Zambardo running a race from Pier and Tom Kitten. Via Sistina, 100 metres to go. She's got the class and she's got the legs, the stamina to win. Another star turn from Via Sistina, 3 legs. Zambardo, Tom Kitten.
It was another great moment. The crowd went absolutely nuts, Sharky, and little did we know at that stage, that was the final time we would get to see Via Sistina, her 12th Group 1 victory. She retired with more than $19 million in the bank. Where do you think she'll be remembered when we talk of some of our great weight for age horses, Shark?
Well, given the amount of group runs that she was able to put away, Michael, in Australia, she's got to be up near the top of the conversation for the last 20 or so years, doesn't she? It was the right result on a day that was absolutely foul weather-wise, but punters that went to the track and braved the conditions. We had some great finishes in the other Group 1s, but that was the horse they wanted to see go and win. She didn't disappoint. It was a fitting farewell for a great race mare, and she's really changed the fortunes, I think, to of Yulong, who were, spending so much money on these mares out of Europe. She was a big risk play. They bring her to Australia, and she didn't let them down.
One of the horses that we thought might have been contesting against Via Sistina in a Cox Plate was Chaya Wolf. He'd been in the wilderness a little bit, Sharky, but a mile on his favourite track here at Randwick. He went back-to-back in the $5 million King Charles. And he put his hand up to say, I'm still here as one of the best horses in the country.
It's funny, isn't it? Every time he runs in a race with Pride of Jenny, he seems to race really well and win these races. Back-to-back King Charles, which is a great result. He'd been testing punters' patience to that point of the spring. So a good result for those that stuck fat. And then he rolls off to the Champions Mile, and I think it was probably his best win when he showed real heart.
This was gutsy. Again, Pride of Jenny in the race, but as you can see, she didn't handle the wet tracks and he had to pull out all his grit and determination to get another Group 1 Chow Wolf.
Pericles at the 100. Chow Wolf won't give in. Pericles, Chow Wolf coming back. Chow Wolf off the canvas and Pericles, Chow Wolf. Chow Wolf or Pericles in a photo.
So that was a Group 1 mile. A week earlier at Flemington over the Cup Week, we had much better conditions and it couldn't be a year in review without Pride of Jenny. And she turned back the clock and Pride of Jenny put them to the sword in a very familiar way.
Michael Lucy is 16 at least off the lead. Back behind those horses, Fangirl, followed by Firestorm, Damask Rose, Splashback and Lazura. So Pride of Jenny looking to be the first multiple winner of the Empire Rose at the 400 metres. She's 9 lengths in front of Leica Lucy on display. A bounding, battling on Benazil and Fangirl. Pride of Jenny, 200 metres to go. She's getting a little bit weary, but she's still 6 or 7 lengths in front of Leica Lucy. Pride of Jenny, stand up and cheer. This is going to be a famous win, a multiple winner of the Empire Rose. Pride of Jenny, you are a beauty.
Great call from Matty Hill. I think that's one of her best wins, Shark, because a lot of people had probably counted her out. We thought she was going to be retired after her performance over Melbourne Cup Week 12 months ago. But for Kira Ma to get her back, and I think for Declan Bates to have found the key, gets back on board and no one rides her as well as he does.
He's pretty cool after winning big races in Kieran Ma, but this horse brings the emotion out of him. I think he is just shocked by what she's capable of doing. The wide margins that she puts up mid-races, she gets your attention if you're a seasonal race goer. She's a horse you want to go to the races to see. It's brilliant when she wins. I haven't seen a horse like her, have you?
Vo Rogue, a long time ago. A long time ago. It's my age showing up here, Sharky. But the excitement, nothing like a front runner brings the crowd into it. And if we fast forward to the autumn Australian Cup Day, she was the one that was bringing the crowds back as well. But on this occasion, there was one who loved that really tough speed, who overran a light infantryman.
Of Just Fine, Light Infantryman, Birdman is sneaking ground the inside. They were followed by Filia. Further back in the field of Pulia, Damask Rose, Sabage and well back Mark Twain. Pride of Jenny looks down the long straight at the 400. She's 2 lengths in front of Birdman, who's about to challenge with Light Infantryman, followed then by Leica Lucy. They've got to Pride of Jenny, Birdman, Light Infantryman, up to Pride of Jenny, who kicks at the 200 metres. Pride of Jenny digs in, finds reserves, a length in front. Light Infantryman looking to go back to back, coming at Pride of Jenny, Apulia late. Pride of Jenny with the heart of a lioness, coming at a Light Infantryman. A photo finish. She may have done it.
It still looked like she won, Pride of Jenny. That bob of the head was really deceptive. We've put a few social media questions out as well, and one of them is, what was the sickest beat? The toughest loss of the year, and I think Pride of Jenny will go pretty close in that Australian Cup.
What about the call from Matt Hill? He no sooner did he counted her out that he sensed the moment and she was fighting back, and then he changed the call again. The whole race changed complexion. I was on Birdman. You couldn't have had enough on at the 300. He hasn't even run top 4 in the end. Like, what a race.
Yeah, Birdman renewed his acquaintance with Pride of Jenny during the Queensland campaign and was able to overcome her as well. But that was one race that we won't forget, the Australian Cup. Now, you remember that horse called Sir Delius? Many people were saying is the best middle-distance horse in Australia. Well, the wheels fell off in the Spring Carnival, but we got to see him back in Sydney in the autumn, and he reminded everyone how good he was in the Queen Elizabeth.
Autumn Glow goes to 4th, followed by Witten Verney, and Ubayana is peeling up on the outside of Autumn Glow. Around the turn, Light Infantryman shows the way. Sir Delius given full rein, and quickly Autumn Glow slices through, and here comes the great mare. Sir Delius making his beat for victory, leads by a length and a half. Autumn Glow is grinding away, and Lindemann down the outside. Autumn Glow's in trouble. Sir Delius, is this his big moment? Sir Delius 2 in front. Lindemann, Autumn Glow do the chasing, but Sir Delius takes out the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, done it by 2 lengths. Lindemann from last second.
So good to see him back. Craig Williams, Gay Waterhouse, Adrian Bott did a brilliant job. The unanswerable question, what might have been in the Cox Plate if he wasn't ruled out, but to have him back in the Queen Elizabeth, and that of course was Autumn Glow's very first defeat, the first time she went out to 2,000. And as you said a little earlier, maybe we'll never see her back at that distance again.
Yeah, and that'll be a shame. But what's not a shame is that we saw Sir Delius back to his very best. And, gee, it whets the appetite for the Spring Carnival coming. And it's not too far away, Michael. You never know, that Cox Plate might still be there for him.
So what was the best middle distance performance? I know there might be a few saying, hey, where's She's an Alibi? We needed to see her. We've kept it to the 3-year-old category. But we will have a look to see how those performances, especially in the Doncaster, rated. Up next, with the best in the business, Daniel O'Sullivan. We've thrown a few questions out on social media to see what you think were the biggest moments in racing. And it's no surprise that the vote came back. The biggest moment in the past year, the Cup stubble. Half Yours, Jamie Mellum and Team McAvoy. So as we have a look at the voting, you can see more than 58% Sharky went with that. Cindy Alderson's first Group 1 was a very popular one as well.
I backed another runner-up, Michael. I was with Cindy and Jigsaw. I thought that was a great story, but yeah, can't take anything away from Jamie and the McAvoys Cup stubble with Half Yours.
Chris Waller might be a bit flat, only 3% for 200 Group 1 wins, eh? It's a tough crowd.
No, he's won enough.
Let's have a look at the ratings, putting everything into context for the middle distance stars of the season, and there's no one better than Daniel O'Sullivan, who joins us today. Great to have you, Daniel. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm great. Thanks.
Keen to get your thoughts. And look, we've broken these into categories. So She's an Alibi. Despite winning a Doncaster, we've said we're going to put her into the 3-year-old discussion. So of the middle distance major races that we've had a look at and the star horses, how did your ratings figures come out this year?
Yeah, if we leave She's an Alibi out of that, Sir Delius Queen Elizabeth win was the highest rated performance in that distance range, 107.8. Autumn Glow's George Ryder, 107.5. Look, they've both produced world-class performances, and at their best, they're world-class horses. You can see both of them there in that list, you know, have got depth behind those peaks as well. Via Sistina there from that's her Champion Stakes win, rated higher than the Cox Plate. Pride of Jenny's Empire Rose win was great. And Aliana as well. I mean, I think we'll see her best maybe over further, but yeah, she's still a force at weight for age, sort of anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 metres as well. So we really do have a terrific amount of depth at the moment in that middle distance range, which historically over the last 10 or 20 years has been criticised a little bit as lacking depth, but that's certainly not the case at the moment. It's probably the strength of Australian racing, to be honest.
It looks super competitive, Daniel, which, you know, bodes so well for the upcoming Spring Carnival when you consider She's Alibi is going to be a 4-year-old joining that group and hopefully some other 3-year-olds. When you look back at other groups of middle distance horses from recent years, does it compare favourably?
Oh, look, I think there's no doubt it's stronger than the last few years that we've seen. I had a quick look back. You've probably got to go back to 2016, 2017, when we had the likes of Winkston, Hartnell, Jamaica, even though she won a Caulfield Cup, she had some very good performances at 2,000 metres. Even Palantino, Blast from the Past, had a couple of big dominant mile wins at Flemington that rated highly. So you're kind of looking at, that's how far you have to go back to sort of find an era that had the depth. 2017, 2018 was strong as well. We had Winks, Humidor, Happy Clapper was doing his thing, and even Galo Chop, which a lot of people might forget, but he had a brilliant season that year as well, sort of adding depth at the top of our ranks. So, yeah, I think it's been quite some time I think this season, 3 horses rating 107 plus in that middle distance range stacks up very strongly. I think there's something like 6 rating 105 plus as well, which stands very strong as well in the context of history for the middle distance horses. So it's a great time for Australian racing in that category.
Well, it's been a bit of a changing of the guard. We said goodbye to Via Sistina, pride of Jenny, as we know. She can't keep going forever, even though she does keep coming back season after season. Who's the horse, 1 or 2, you want to follow in the upcoming Spring Carnival?
Look, I think She's an Alibi is the obvious. I mean, she could be anything. I mean, that Doncaster win, which was the 109 rating, as you said, she is a 3-year-old. Of the other horses, obviously Autumn Glow, we're all keen to see what she does, but Aliana's a horse that I was very keen to follow into the autumn, expecting that she would sort of furnish into the best version of herself, and I think she did that, and I think she's probably got more to come in the spring. As I said, I think her best will prove, maybe at 2,400, but I think she's still a proper Group 1 weight for age horse at 2,000 metres and has been effective even over a mile. So, she's probably the one outside of the 3-year-olds that I'm keen to see.
Dan, I'm looking forward to your input in all of our review shows as we look back on the ratings as well. Sharky, that's the middle distance horses. Next up, it'll be the 3-year-olds.
Can't wait.
All right, we'll see you then on the Verdicts Review, the 3-year-olds up next.